I know I need to read this one. I 100% bought this because of the cover. Some of his most popular and some of his best, I've heard. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name's Marissa and I like to talk about books and book design. We have a fun video today because it's a little bit of an intervention. I have decided that it's finally time to count up my physical TBR. I honestly cannot remember the last time I did that. So I'm scared, I'm concerned, but I'm excited to be reinvigorated about the books I have and get excited to get into them. So if any of these books you have read, please let me know what you thought of them in the comments below. And if there's any you all want me to prioritize adding to my TBR or potentially making a video about, please let me know and I will do so. Without further ado, let's get into it. I'm gonna start by showing you my classic shelf that almost never makes it into my videos since I'm so short and I'm usually sitting while filming. I do collect these leather-bound editions of classic books. My rule with these is that I will only buy them if I for sure want to read it. Like, I won't buy one that I'm not that interested in just as like shelf decor, like Moby Dick. Sorry, I'm not buying Moby Dick. I'm probably not ever gonna read Moby Dick. So I read a few of these, but let's see which I haven't read. First up, we have Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Then I have a few Charles Dickens books that I have not gotten around to reading yet, which would be David Copperfield, Oliver Twist, and A Tale of Two Cities. The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner, which I'm just now realizing still has a sticker on it. The Portrait of a Lady by Henry James. The Collected Poems of Marianne Moore. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. Marlowe by Shakespeare. Then I have these two really cool editions of John Steinbeck books, which would be Of Mice and Men and In Dubious Battle. I have this beautiful, stunning, perfect edition of Anna Karenina. I actually did start this one. I got like 200 pages in or so back in 2019. Then I got overwhelmed and I started reading Twilight and I just got distracted. But this is one of my like most anticipated reads. It's on my like top 10 before I die, so I need to pick her back up when I'm feeling brave. The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton. Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. The last book I have up on my special collection shelf is this edition of Cujo by Stephen King. And this is actually a first edition, first print of Cujo that my aunt gave me as a graduation present, which is so cool. And I actually haven't read this one. I have another copy, which I'll show you later. But yeah, she just kind of stays on display on my shelf. Now getting into the rest of my shelf, I do have some more classics sprinkled throughout, but they're not those nice leather-bound editions. Got Tsarina. I went through a phase of really being intrigued by Russian history, but I never ended up reading this one. Still very intrigued though. And I've really never heard anyone talk about it, so if you've read it, let me know. Sense and Sensibility and Emma by Jane Austen. Although I'm technically like 5 pages into Emma because I'm doing a buddy read with Emily and Lori Beth. I'll link their channels here. Bunny by Mona Awad. This has been in probably every single one of my TBR videos. I'll get to it soon. Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. The edition with the beautiful red sprayed edges. I know I need to read this one. I really am looking forward to it. I'm just scared. I've heard it's better than Six of Crows, so I really am looking forward to it, but I just need to be in the perfect headspace, and I'm not sure when that'll be. She's Gone by David Bell. She's so good! Book of Night by Holly Black. This is also a frequent offender on my TBR list, but never gets read. The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. I also really want to read this one soon, but I'm gonna do a reread of The Cruel Prince first. This is the last of my Holly Black, which is the Modern Fairy Tales. I think there's like 3 stories in this one. We got Tithe, Valiant, Ironside, The Lament of Ludi Lou. So I guess 4. I've been saving this one for when I get the Holly Black itch and there's nothing else left for me to read. 266 by Roberto Bolano. This is one of my boyfriend's favorite books. I believe this is like a crime mystery type book, which isn't always my favorite. He says I'm really gonna like it, so I believe him. Got Maggots Screaming by Max Booth III. I don't really know a lot about this one. My friend Eden gave me this copy, but I'm pretty sure it's a horror novel, so maybe I'll pick this one up around October. We got Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Hollywood by Charles Bukowski. We got another sticker here. In my defense, my dad gave me this one, so that's his fault, not mine. Black Moon by Kenneth Calhoun. I've never heard anyone talk about this one, but it has something to do with insomnia and going into some sort of dream world. We've got The Lady of the Lake by Raymond Chandler. I 100% bought this because of the cover. I didn't realize it's part of a series. I believe you can read them out of order though, so I might just go ahead and read this one. It's part of the like Philip Marlowe series with like The Long Goodbye and The Big Sleep, I think. Then we've got 2 Stephen Chbosky books. The Perks of Being a Wallflower is on my 5-star prediction list for 2024, and I told myself I couldn't read Imaginary Friend until I finished The Perks of Being a Wallflower, but I am so excited about Imaginary Friend, even though the size does really intimidate me, but it is a horror novel about like a kid with an imaginary friend. He goes missing for a couple days and then he comes back, like, emerges from the woods, and is talking of this imaginary friend. I am super intrigued and I really want to get to it, so I gotta read this one first. All right, we're moving down to the second shelf here, which is truly horrifying that I had that many unread books just on the top shelf. Thinking this is gonna be a long video. Got The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. This very bright book is The Orchardist by Amanda Copeland. I'm including this one because I technically haven't read all the poems in it, and that is Violet Bent Backwards Over the Grass by Lana Del Rey. It's her poetry book. Then I have 2 Daphne du Maurier books. I feel like I mess her name up every time I say it. I'm so sorry. But I have this cool edition of Rebecca, and then this is a collection of short stories by her. This next one is a nonfiction one that I'm super excited about, and that would be The Feminization of American Culture. This is a book that studies culture of the feminine sort. It says it shows how women exploited their feminine image and idealized the very qualities that kept them powerless. I definitely need to be in the mindset to read this one. Middlemarch by George Eliot. Tender is the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The Aerodynamics of Pork. This is a book that my friend Nick sent to me. He said he found it. I think he was cleaning out a library or like a library sale, and he randomly picked it up and he loved it, so he sent me a copy. We've got Magic for Liars by Sarah Bailey. This is one that I'm very uncertain about because I started another Sarah Bailey book. The name of it is slipping my mind right now. I did not like it at all. It's one of the only books I have ever DNF'd. I don't know, I just really didn't like the writing, so I'm kind of scared that I'm not gonna like this one either. If you can vouch for Magic for Liars, please do. Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. Zodiac by Robert Graysmith. I don't know that I will ever read this one, and I don't really know why I wanted to. I definitely got this one in high school. The illustrated edition of Grimm's Fairy Tales. The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Cannon. Olive's Ocean by Kevin Hencase. The Rules of Magic by Alice Hoffman. Okay, I had no clue when I bought this years ago that it's the prequel to Practical Magic. But I've since read Practical Magic, so now I am fully prepared to dive into this one. This one's a little bit of a random pick, and that is Bunnicula. The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Big fan of the show. Huge fan. I've heard they're not very similar though, which I think is okay. I think I'll still enjoy it, but I always say I want to read it in October, but then there's so many books that I want to read in October, so it keeps getting pushed off. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Casey. Hood Feminism by Mickey Kendall. I've got China Rich Girlfriend by Kevin Kwan. This is one that I'm not sure if I want to read. I read Crazy Rich Asians forever ago when I was in high school, and I really enjoyed it, but it kind of put me into a reading slump at the time just because it took so long to get through. And maybe that was because I was in high school and I was just like a little bit too stupid to be reading it. I've just kind of lost the spark for the series, and I'm like, if I did, I probably would listen to the audiobook, so I may end up giving this one away. As mentioned, I have my other edition of Cujo, which I also love this one. Super cool. Usually I would just keep the other edition I have, but I really don't want to give this one away because I love the cover and it belonged to my great uncle before he passed. Okay, we're kind of entering my Stephen King section now, so I do have Fairy Tale. This is one of his newer releases, and I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about it. I think what I have heard, it's been good things. I don't think I've ever read like a true fantasy from Stephen King, so I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see if he pulls it off. If you've read this one, let me know if you liked it. Okay, we are moving right along down to my third shelf. We've got The Outsider by Stephen King. And then I have two of my most anticipated Stephen Kings, which would be Pet Sematary and The Shining. Not sure how I haven't read either of these, to be honest, because they're some of his most popular and some of his best, I've heard. Next up, we have probably the most iconic section of my shelf, which is my Diary of a Wimpy Kid collection. Me and my friend Jay decided to read all of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books kind of as a joke because we liked the first couple when we read them as kids. We realized that we unironically loved it. It truly is so funny. It is so funny. And when I tell you, one of the few book series that has ever made me laugh out loud, I'm sorry, it still hits. I will never deny that. But there are two I haven't read, which are the two most recent, and that would be Diaper Overload and No Brainer. A little fun fact for you is that I went to one of Jeff Kinney's book tours back in 2022, I think, and I don't know why I wasn't expecting the event to be only children. So that was a humbling moment. And then on the way home, I totaled my car, so. You know what? Now that I'm looking, I don't think I've read this one either. Then we've got The Good Girl by Mary Kubica, Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. If you've read this, are there mermaids in here? I've been fiending for some mermaid books, so let me know. The Last Russian Doll by Kristen Loesch. I was very briefly subscribed to Book of the Month. I don't know if I just signed up at a bad time, but I wasn't ever really excited about the books I was seeing. As you can tell, I've got plenty of unread books already, so I had to cancel for the time being. This one is an arc that my friend Eden gave me, and that is The Dachshund Wears Prada. This is not the typical book I would read, but there's something just compelling to me about this in the moment, and maybe it's just because I love dachshunds. You know what it is. I got the rest of the acotar series. I am still halfway through this one, and then of course I have A Court of Wings and Ruin. These will be read this year. I'm putting it out there. I'm manifesting it. These will be read this year. And then after I read this series, I think I am gonna try Throne of Glass, The Collected Regrets of Clover. And the last two on that shelf are Serpent and Dove and Blood and Honey. I am so afraid to pick up this series because I've heard the first one's really good and then it kind of just goes downhill from there. That is a little bit disappointing. I don't know why I like preemptively bought the second one. I don't know, maybe I'll be the outlier and I will enjoy it. I decided to crawl on the floor for the final shelf of this bookshelf, but you still can't really see it, so whatever. As I mentioned earlier, I went through a phase of being really intrigued by Russian history, so I bought this book on Catherine the Great, The Road by Cormac McCarthy, Fractured by Catherine Mackenzie. I have both read and loved The Lunar Chronicles, but I still haven't read these two like offshoots. I think one is, oh my god, you can't see me. This is the prequel and this is a collection of short stories. I was just waiting until I was like really itching to get back into the series to read these, but it's been many a years now. Then I have the Life and Death edition of Twilight, which I have read Twilight, but I still haven't read Life and Death. Before I read that one, I still have yet to read Breaking Dawn. So a little background lore. Yes, I love Twilight, and yes, I am a fake fan since I haven't read the whole series, but I loved the movies as a kid, and I remember I saw New Moon in theaters, and then I was so excited about it that I immediately went and I read Eclipse, but then my mom wouldn't let me read Breaking Dawn because there's a sex scene in it. So I've since gone back and read Twilight and New Moon, but that was a few years ago, and I haven't started this one because I realized I need to reread Eclipse, and Eclipse just wasn't my fave, but I'll do it for her. And then I'll do it for her. Still haven't read Midnight Sun either, and this is probably the one I'm most excited about because I need to know what that freak is thinking about. I've got two Megan Miranda books, All the Missing Girls and The Last House Guest. But I just have not been in the mood to read a thriller in the longest time because I feel like I've read so many bad ones recently. And by recently, I mean like the past couple years. So if you think these are good ones, please let me know if they're worth it. Or if you have another thriller recommendation that you think I'd enjoy, please do, because it used to be my favorite genre, but now I hardly read it anymore. Slade House by David Mitchell. It's got this cool cutout feature. Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. More Than This by Patrick Ness, which also has a fun little cutout on the cover. I think I've had this one longer than The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I've probably had this since like 2013 or 2014. Next Life Might Be Kinder by Howard Norman. I believe I got this one in a blind date with a book. Outlawed by Anna North. This is one of my favorite book covers of all time. So I was devastated when people started reading it, and I have yet to hear a good review of it. So I've been scared and just putting it off because I don't want to ruin the story I've created in my head just by looking at the cover. Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This one is called Warlight, 1984 by George Orwell. Woods Are Always Watching by Stephanie Perkins. And this is the last book on my first bookshelf, which would be Night Film by Marisa Thoman. Another very fun holographic cover. I also have this collection of short horror stories, which I think I specifically mentioned in my fall TBR last year that I wanted to read just at least one story. Did I? No. Yeah. So this next section is just a mini shelf that I keep on top of my desk, and you would think I would use this for like my upcoming TBR or books I just want to look at because I sit here every day, but no. It's just completely random wherever I can put things away. I've got On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. Hush by Anna Fraser. Then I've got some more Stephen King randomly in here, which is Holly. If you didn't see my trilogy recommendation video, I mentioned the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, and Holly continues with one of the characters from that trilogy, and she's one of Stephen King's best characters, so I'm super excited to read her story here. Then I have these 3 older books that I kind of don't really have any intention of reading just because they seem just very old, and like if I read them they might fall apart, which I definitely don't want to happen. I've got this super cute edition of Peter Pan and the entire Sisters Grimm series, which technically I have read this. I think I've read probably all of these, but that was when I was like in elementary school, so I don't remember any of it, and I'm super excited to reread. This is one of my most recent purchases, and that is a short story collection from Jeffrey Eugenides. If you don't know, The Virgin Suicides by Eugenides is one of my favorite books of all time. This is such a cool cover and dust jacket situation. So this is what it looks like under the dust jacket, which I just love. Everything about this illustration and the cool color combos is just doing it for me. And the last one on the shelf that I haven't read yet is Cover Story by Susan Rigetti. We finally made it to my final shelf, thank God. I don't know how I was deluding myself into thinking I didn't have this many unread books, but consider myself intervened. Got The Devil All the Time by Donald Ray Pollock. Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. As a self-proclaimed vampire girly, it's actually criminal that I haven't read this one yet. This one is Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. This is the sequel to Carry On, which I read many years ago and I did enjoy, but I think maybe the train has passed and I probably will not read this one. I've got Our Dark Duet by V.E. Schwab, and I've got Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This is one of her middle grade books, and I am super excited because it's like a little bit of a gothic ghost story, I believe. They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. The Chestnut Man. This is, okay, we've got another sticker. Got The Little Friend by Donna Tartt. I haven't heard so much about this one. I've read The Goldfinch and I loved it. Haven't read The Secret History. Haven't read this one. Okay, I've said it a few times throughout this video, but I think I have finally found the oldest book on my physical TBR, and that would be Daughter of Smoke and Bone. Who remembers this one? Who remembers this one? I don't, because I never read it, but Ink Blood Sister Scribe by Emma Torres. Candide by Voltaire. This one is called The Invaders, and I remember I bought this one right around the time when Don't Worry Darling came out because they have similar plots, but I didn't end up really enjoying Don't Worry Darling, so maybe I'll like this book a little bit more. In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. Moving on to shelf 2. This is one of the coolest covers I have. This is The Killer Thing by Kate Wilhelm. Look at that. Got The Glass Ocean. All the Dangerous Things by Stacey Willingham. Okay, actually this one might be my favorite cover of all time. Interior Chinatown. The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. This is a book called Putney. Another one of my 5-star predictions, The Martian by Andy Weir. This one was featured in my spring TBR this year, so hopefully I'll get to it soon. And that is The Lady Rogue. Another gift from my boyfriend, which is Carmilla. A Clockwork Orange. I feel like so many people have tried to talk me out of reading this one, and they're probably for good reason. The School for Good Mothers. I bought this at like a library warehouse sale, so that's why it looks like a library book. And then we have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Now I have a little stack here on the third shelf. The Quicksilver Pool, Cat's Eye, and All Quiet on the Western Front. My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh. Recursion by Blake Crouch. Blake Crouch's other book, Dark Matter, was one of my favorites from 2023, and I feel like I talk about it in every single video. So finally on the final shelf of my final bookshelf, we're once again on the floor, and immediately we've got another sticker on my book. This is White Ivy by Susie Yang. Oh, and look here, another offender. This is My Name is Memory by Anne Beschers. The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. I don't think I've ever read a Virginia Woolf novel, but I have To the Lighthouse and The Waves. I really don't know which one to start with, so if you all have a suggestion, let me know. Okay, I'm just now realizing I have another edition of Peter Pan. I'm remembering now that I meant to give that edition I showed earlier to my sister for Christmas, so sorry girl. Hopefully she's not watching this because she might get it next year. Then I have my edition of Dune Messiah. Jazz by Toni Morrison. The Witch's Daughter by Paula Braxton. One of Us is Next by Karen M. McManus. This next one I got my dad for Christmas and then I realized he had already read it, so now I have it. And that is Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. My friend Nick just sent me this copy as a belated birthday gift. Thank you, Nick. Weather by Jenny O'Phil. We're down to the final three. The Rules Do Not Apply by Ariel Levy. She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. And the last and final book on my physical TBR that's currently in my apartment and not at my parents' house, The Cave Dwellers by Christina McDowell. Well, that was truly humbling and embarrassing. I actually cannot believe, I can't believe. If my counting was correct, which it's probably not, but it's at least in this ballpark. 149. And I'm even more ashamed to admit that this is after I whittled it down. In conclusion, stay humble, stay reading. I was really bad about buying books for many years in my life because I used to work at Barnes & Noble, so I got a lot of free ARCs, and it was just like dangling temptation in front of my face. So I have definitely slowed down on my book buying since then, but it's still clearly something that could be roped in a little bit. Please let me know if you've read any of these and if you think I need to put them at the top of my TBR. If you want to see a specific video about any of these books, let me know. And if you want to do a buddy read or anything, feel free to shoot me a message. If you stuck with me to the end, thank you and I love you, and I hope I see you in the next one.